testing it myself. There we go.
Oof.
There we go. Right, how do I bring these back across? These have been pushed off to the side. My computer doesn't want these. There you are, these are back. Right, so what do you guys see on your screen just now? Do you just see the slide?
Yeah, just
the slide plus I have speakers down the tile
Okay.
down the side.
Cool. Right, okay, that's fine. So with this talk, what I'm going to cover is just sort of basic stuff. But I said to a couple of you the other day, I don't mind if you've got like sort of slightly more in-depth questions, even though what I'm presenting is the kind of basics of nutrition. If you've got slightly more complex questions, that's cool. So I'm going to talk a bit about, like, well, really all about what's really important in your diet. And then that doesn't change that much, really, regardless of what you're aiming for. Really, unless you're like aiming for something very, very, very specific, like winning the Olympics, then your diet isn't going to be that much different, or your diet recommendations aren't going to be that much different. So, I mean, I've said this like a gazillion times, and I don't know how to sell it to people properly, but nothing will make you feel like a superhero quicker than a good diet, honestly. The impact is immediate. So if you changed your diet today, you will feel better today and tomorrow. So it's not like a weight loss diet per se, where you don't necessarily see results from that for weeks and weeks. You change your diet to a good quality diet today, and you'll feel better immediately. The weight loss I'll talk about in the context of this, if that's something that's of interest to you. It usually is. It's the most commonly asked question. It's like, how do you lose weight? But initially I'm going to talk about micronutrients and macronutrients, and I know I said like basics, right? These are the basics of a good diet. Macronutrients are proteins, carbs and fats, and I'm going to go over that briefly. Arguably, it's actually the micronutrients that are the really important things though. So your protein, carbs and fats contain micronutrients. That's where you get your vitamins and your minerals from, and your fiber from. So it's actually arguably more important that you concentrated on what micronutrients you were getting in a day rather than what macronutrients you were. However, it's much harder to record. It's much harder to trace. And by default, if you had a broad spectrum of good quality macros, your micros are going to be taken care of. In context, in this talk, that's about as complicated as I'm going to get today, hopefully. I don't think it's complicated, you see, so hopefully, hopefully it comes across that way. So, as I said, your macros are your proteins, carbs, and fats. And just as a brief overview of what those things are, because sometimes people do get a little confused about what items of food fall into what categories. So your proteins are mostly probably what you think they are: meat, fish, eggs, nuts, beans. Some people don't realise that there's proteins in things like plant matter, like beans and some vegetables. And dairy products. So excuse me if I don't talk about dairy products much. I've been allergic to dairy for a lot of years now, so I kind of forget that dairy products exist. I don't have a problem with them though. There's no inherent problem with dairy. Well, that comes into the more complicated seminar. Possible problems with dairy. So I'm trying to record this today, by the way, guys. So hopefully you can write things down if you want, for sure, if it helps you remember things. But otherwise, I'm hoping that I'll be able to send you a recording of this. Obviously, maybe don't rely on that. So protein, meat, fish, eggs, nuts, beans, cheese. The only way to know for sure how much protein you're getting is to actually measure it. I'll talk a wee bit about that later on though. Your good quality fats, I think this is one that maybe sometimes people get a bit confused with. So your good quality fats can be found in things like avocado, wild caught salmon, again nuts, extra virgin olive oil and seeds. You might think that list is quite specific. It is quite specific. Wild caught salmon is infinitely better than just shelf co-op bought salmon. Wild caught salmon is usually a darker, pinker colour rather than that like day glow orange that you get. That's not to say that normal off the shelf salmon is bad for you, just wild caught salmon is a lot better. So if you can get your hands on it, then do. Any oily fish as well, like mackerels, sardines are really good. And extra virgin olive oil as opposed to other olive oils, because the process that produces extra virgin olive oil is a lot less aggressive. So it's the purest form of oil from the olives that you can get. Sometimes other olive oil products are not in fact that, and if you read the back of the bottle, you'll find that they also contain things like sunflower oil and rapeseed oil, and other like heavily processed oils. So extra virgin olive oil is probably, that could almost be at the top of the list. And yes, you can cook with it. Try not to cook with it like at super high olive oil. It's got a very high burn point. But if you test that a wee bit too high, it'll go through what they call the smoke point, and it's not quite as good. It gets damaged a little. So medium to high heat for cooking with olive oil is fine though. You can, and it's best just taken in its raw state. I used to chuck a tablespoon of it into my smoothie. I say used to because I've been struggling to get my hands on some of the frozen veg that I used to put in my smoothie. Okay, so you can ask questions about these later on if you want, or at any point. I don't mind if you jump in with questions. And then your carbohydrates. So you've got your proteins, your fats, and then your carbohydrates. So good sources of your carbohydrates are going to come from any root vegetable. That's your tubers, your potatoes, your carrots, sweet potatoes, things that grow in the ground. Potatoes, people think there's some like sort of poor potatoes. They get such a bad press, and they've really no need to. They're actually a really good addition into your diet. So if you've been avoiding potatoes at any point in your life, please don't. They don't deserve it. Fruits, again, don't avoid fruit. People fear the banana. Don't fear the banana. Oats are okay. They don't contain as many micronutrients as the fruits and veg do, but they're all right. And then there's some of the other ones, some of the other kind of grains that are non-gluten based, like quinoa, and a myriad of squashes, of which things fall under like butternut squash, pumpkin, and then all those weird little squashes that you see on the shelves that you don't really know what they are. All of those things are carbohydrates. They also contain good quantities of fibre in them as well. Fibre I'm not going to talk about quite as much today, but it's important. It's actually often one of the things that people really lack in their diet is enough fibre. And if you don't have enough fibre, I think everybody understands what fibre does. If you don't have enough fibre in your diet, then your body is not going to process the foods properly and function properly. And you're likely to feel pretty tired and sluggish if you're not eating enough fibre. So what should you be eating? Right, this is where you might want to take notes. So to figure out quantities. Now I could do this for you, but it's nice to have the tools to be able to do this for yourself. You will need to weigh yourself in pounds, or weigh yourself in any way you like, and then ask Siri to convert it to pounds, which is what I do. So if you weigh yourself in kilos or stones, then just ask the internet to convert it and it'll tell you. So you've got your weight in pounds, for example, for today, which is a sort of average-ish sized woman, smallish man, 175 pounds. If you take that weight in pounds and you multiply it by 0.7, that will give you the number of grams of protein that you should aim for in a day, roughly. Okay, doesn't need to be exact, that's roughly. So somebody who weighs 175 pounds is going to require about 122.5 grams of protein in a day, which gives you a 490 calorie hit from your protein. Okay, so if you're consuming that 122.5 grams of protein, you're also consuming 490 calories. from your meat or your nuts, etc. Lorna, what are you doing?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to a better angle for me to watch your slideshow. Apologies.
You're in circles. Keep in mind when you're weighing your protein that 100 grams of chicken is not 100 grams of protein. 100 grams of chicken contains roughly 26 grams of protein. So you're looking at those numbers and you're like, hells, 100 grams of chicken is about a smallish chicken breast. That contains 26 grams of protein, which means in order to hit 122.5 grams of protein in a day, you're talking what? 5 of them.
It's a lot of chicken.
Most people do not eat anywhere near enough protein, not even close. It's one of the questions I always ask my personal training clients, like, what's your protein consumption like? They nearly always answer, yeah, pretty good. I ask them to record it for a week and it is terrible. I have seen people come to me consuming as little as 35 grams of protein in a day, which is tiny. Now, you need that protein for a lot of reasons, okay? So most people relate it to muscle function. So they relate it to exercise and recovery, which is true. But you also need it for good hormonal health. So if you find that you suffer in all kinds of ways from like erratic moods, for example, to poor quality sleep, you might find that your protein intake has something to do with that. Honestly, I could talk for hours about the problems that people could have if they don't eat enough protein. Really honestly, you just need to eat enough protein and then you don't need to worry about the other things. So what does that leave in terms of what you do with your carbs and your fats? So if you're eating 0.7 times your body weight in pounds of protein, that presumably means that the rest of your diet is going to be made up of carbs and fat, correct? About half and half is usually about right. So if you've eaten 490 grams, I hope these aren't too many numbers, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. But if you're eating 490 calories, sorry, or 470, whatever it was, calories of protein, and say you were aiming for 2,000 calories in a day, then that 1,500-ish calories remaining is divided between your carbs and your fat. Now, for your carbs and your fat, you're wanting to try and consume about 800 grams of fruit and veg in a day. That usually amounts to about 500 calories. Depends. The more root vegetables you eat, the higher the calorie content is, unless it's things like squash. Squash has a slightly lower calorie count. So 800 grams of fruit and veg in their natural form, which means an apple pie does not count, I'm afraid. Oh no.
And does that mean raw?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So it could come from a tin, it could be frozen, it can be cooked for sure, it could be eaten straight off the fruit or the vegetable, but no, any format, as long as it's pure. So if it comes out of a tin, don't weigh the liquid it comes in. And if the liquid contains a fruit juice or sugar, then you probably don't want to count that as your fruit and veg for the day, because it's got additives into it. So if for example, like, so don't get too pernickety and too like anal about counting it. For example, if you've already cooked, it's slightly better weighed raw, like, but don't worry about it. Like if you've already cooked your potatoes, but you're wanting to weigh out that 800 grams, just weigh them cooked. It's fine. It's fine. Don't stress too much about it. The idea behind the 800 grams is to try and get people to eat vastly more fruit and veg than what they do. And for those micronutrients that I was talking about at the start, this is roughly the quantity that you need to be eating in order to be able to get enough micronutrients into your body to be healthy, to be optimally healthy. You want to include, alongside that 800 grams of fruit and veg, you absolutely want to include 1 or 2 sources of fat in the day. Remember, these are your good quality fats, like your extra virgin olive oil, your avocado, your fish. some nuts. By the way, nut portions, where are they? Oh God, I moved them. Nut portions. This is my bowl of nuts. This is how you should buy your nuts, okay? In shells, not in packets with salt, okay? In shells, and a portion is about that many. Sorry.
It's always disappointing.
Sometimes. I would also urge you to eat like an array of nuts. So like a Brazil nut, a walnut, an almond, a hazelnut, you know, have like that's just a nice way to do it. You're getting a bigger broad spectrum for things like selenium out of your nuts. And if you, so for example, selenium in Brazil nuts, but you might not get the quantities in some of the other nuts. So it's nice to get like that broad selection of nuts, and then you're ticking off more boxes, covering more bases. Depends how pernickety you want to be. You certainly don't need to go to that detail. Let's just clarify that. That would have me having you eating like different types of seeds in a day and all sorts. And that's a way above and beyond what you need. The human body is incredible. It will function on pretty much like Big Macs. It will function. To some degree.
It turns out.
It certainly won't be optimal though. So you'll notice that exciting sentence at the bottom, which says then if you have any calories left, go crazy. It's like, when's she going to talk about that one?
Can I just ask, sorry, quickly, where does coconut oil fit in? Is it not that great a fat, like, you know, for cooking, or should that be avoided?
Although I'm referring to, you guys might not be so aware of this, coconut oil gained great press during the paleo movement. This isn't like the paleo movement of like, you know, 10,000 years ago. This is the paleo movement of like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever it was. And coconut, because it comes from a natural source, got very much the good press. Now, coconut oil does contain some of those micronutrients that you want, but you might notice that in this country, coconut oil comes as a solid, not as a liquid, and solid fats, generally speaking, are not as good for you. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't use it. It doesn't mean you can't use it. It means it's not quite as good as extra virgin olive oil, but that is in the pernickety bracket of, is that really that thing that's going to be the thing that moves the needle for your health? You know, probably not. Probably not. What I would say is, regardless of if you are using coconut oil, I would also be using the extra virgin olive oil. I would have that in your diet. There's links to the use of extra virgin olive oil and staving off Alzheimer's, for example. There's a lot of people doing research on that just now, and it's really, really, really interesting. I think the way that research is going in relation to food is really exciting just now. People are paying a lot more attention to the quality of the foods and what individual foods might be doing for people's brain health and mental health, sleep quality. They're paying much more attention to that, and finally, you know, there's studies on women now and again as well, which is nice. That used to be a zero. So, let's get back to that sentence. If you have any calories left, then let's go crazy. Then what that means is, let me see, is it on the next slide? There it is. Okay, so the average person, don't forget, I've not forgotten about my going crazy bit, don't worry. The average person's daily intake is going to look something like 120 to 150 grams of protein. Okay, so we'll say that's 500 calories from protein, just for simplicity's sake. Or I've got it right now at the bottom, it's fine. 800 grams of fruit and veg, which is going to give you about 500 calories, and then some healthy fats, which is probably going to give you about another 200 calories. So we're at what, about 1200 calories now? Okay, so say you've had your 2000 calories a day, is roughly what you'd be aiming for, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you know what calories to aim for. If I forget, remind me. I'm writing it down. Say you're aiming for 2000 in a day, you've got 490, you're that 175 pound person, remember. You're aiming for 490 from your protein, and then you're dividing the rest of your calories between fat and carbohydrates, which is about 1,500 calories. 800 grams of fruit and veg is giving you about 500 calories. You would get that exact if you're measuring it on, like, say, MyFitnessPal, for example. It'll tell you exactly how many calories it is and some healthy fats. Now, if you prioritize those 3 things at the top of that list, you prioritize them in a day, and it gets to, like, 6:30, and you've eaten your protein, you've eaten your fruit and veg, and you've eaten some healthy fats, and you've got 300 calories left. Eat whatever the hell you like. There is a thing with nutrition where it is often not what people are eating that's the problem, it's what they are not eating that is the problem. So people say to me, and I'm sure you, it's been the bane of my personal training life for forever, but surely it's everything in moderation, Anne. It is, but people do not understand moderation. They don't understand it at all. People think that, having, like, sandwiches for their lunch, and then, Kit Kat for their with their lunch with a can of Coke, and they don't even count those things. They don't even realise that those things are the things that they should be having in moderation. And moderation means more like having that once a week, maybe even once a month, not once a day. If, however, their diet was filled with the protein, the fruit and veg, and the fat, that Kit Kat, not so much a problem. The can of Coke might be, the can of fizzy juice might be for other reasons. So, any questions based on that now? Does that make sense, right? Should make sense.
I've got a question on protein.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on powder?
Yes, so I think I had a slide on that, maybe not.
Oh, right, okay.
No, it's okay, I'll talk about it now though. So, yes, it depends. It depends. What does the rest of your diet look like? That's the first question. So if you are consuming your protein via protein powder, then we're going, well, you're not eating the meats and the fish. And protein when it comes direct from source is always going to be a little bit superior to coming from a powder. But no, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine, but what does the rest of your diet look like? That's what I would always question. I would say eat as much as you can, as in consume it with a meal. So the other thing that protein does is it helps you stay fuller for longer as well. So if you can consume a little bit of protein with each meal, then you're less likely to be craving weird things in between because you'll just feel satiated. If you're having like one protein shake in a day, it's not a mega issue. Ask yourself why you're having it, like what's the necessity for it, and check the ingredients. Check the ingredients because there's some terrible protein powders out there, just rammed full of sugars. So make sure, I guess this is maybe what you want to do, is like make sure that if you're having that protein powder that you're quantifying it within your day, like say by recording via MyFitnessPal. It will also record then if there's any carbs in it that you want to take into account as well. And what you don't want to do is have that protein powder then push out like some of the carbs that you could be eating from fruit and veg. So, but yeah, no, I mean that was a fairly extensive answer to something that says, yeah, it's all right. Why so much fruit and veg? I've kind of talked about this a bit. It pushes out the poor foods. So if you're prioritising your fruits and your vegetables to that sort of 800 gram bracket, and sure you can eat more than that, and don't freak out if you only eat like 600 grams in a day. If the majority of the time you're hitting closer to that 800, you're doing pretty well for yourself. It pushes out the crap food. It's giving you a broader spectrum within your diet, so variety within that fruit and veg is important as well. So try and pick. So one of the things that now is maybe not the optimal time for this because things can be a wee bit harder to get your hands on just now. But to try and eat a fruit or a vegetable, like each time you go shopping, try and buy a fruit or a vegetable that you wouldn't normally buy, and have that with your diet. So there's all sorts of things that I don't normally buy, and then I'll just pick them up, like a leek, for example. I'll maybe get a leek, or you know, just depends what's on the shelves. Fruits, I like to try lots of different fruits. You know, I'm not a big fan of things like peaches and that, but I'll buy them now and again just for that variety, for that broad spectrum. There's a sort of ballpark figure of 30 different types of fruit and veg in a week. That's the kind of, for optimal health again, we're looking for optimal health. But it's not necessary. I think it's quite fun to do though. I think it adds a little bit of interest to your diet. So within that fruit and veg, you've also got the fibre that you need for your healthy digestion, and you've got all those micronutrients that your body absolutely does need for optimal health. This is where the micronutrients are where people's health is coming into play. So if you want to recover quickly from exercise, you need a good quality of micronutrients in your diet. If you want to recover well from sickness, you need a good quality of micronutrients in your diet. If you want to wake up in the morning feeling like you've got a lot of energy, if you want to not have brain fog, if you want to have good concentration, good memory, like these things are necessary. Like people get confused because the body's so clever, and it will keep you alive really under pretty extreme circumstances. But there's a big difference between I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm being able to function as a human, and I'm optimal. There's a big difference there. Big difference. And I think this is something that often falls short with what people understand about diet. So I listed some of the things there. The brain function, mood, muscle, hormones, sleep, recovery, performance, your attention span, and honestly, you could Google it, much more. I'm not going into like what those vitamins and minerals are, because frankly, you kind of don't need to know. You don't really need to know. Like you could, if you're interested, you could go and find out. I've certainly done it. I've got folders filled with this stuff. Do I need to know it? Not really. Does it massively affect the choices I make in the day, whether or not I'm getting enough vitamin K? No, because I'm eating a broad spectrum of fruit and veg and nuts, and I think it's a reasonable assumption that I'm getting most of the things that I require from my diet. Some things are a little bit harder to find, like iron, for example. We know dark green veg and red meat, of course. So I can be a little guilty of not eating enough red meat. I purposefully buy a steak once a week now, so that I know that I'm eating red meat. Water. It's funny, in person I always talk about water. Sometimes I forget when I'm putting things in writing to talk about water. This is up there, it's right at the top of the list, alongside sleep, for optimal health, which is 3 to 5 pints a day. Which is, like I drink a lot of water. This wee guy here sits on my desk, and I usually drink 2 of these in a day, alongside fruit teas like mint, lemon and ginger and all that. I do have a lot of the fruit teas. 3 to 5 pints of water a day. Like honestly, see that list of see that list that I had before. I thought I was going back there. See that list that I had before of the brain fog and all that. All those things would apply to water as well. So if you're not having enough water, like people say, oh God, I don't know why I'm so hungry today. Try drinking some water. Oh God, I don't know why I'm so tired today. Try drinking some water. Oh God, I don't know why I can't concentrate today. Try drinking some water. And during the summer, usually people aren't so bad. They drink more water, generally speaking, during the summer. During the winter, honestly, I literally have to like fill up bottles and make sure I drink them during the winter, because it's really easy not to do that when it's colder. So there's a few things that I could add into here, and I suspect one of them that you're wanting to know is how many calories you should eat in a day. Now, there is literally only one way to sort this out. There is only one way to get this right. You can Google this and it'll give you 1,000 different formulas and stuff that you can use. The only way to work it out is to record everything that you eat for a week and find out how many calories you're eating in a week. Average that out over the days, and that will tell you how many calories you are eating that maintains your body weight right now, assuming that you're not gaining or losing weight at the moment. That's the only way to find out how many calories you should be eating. There is no other way. There are ways that give you a ballpark figure. You can put information into MyFitnessPal. It will give you a ballpark figure, but that's all that it is. You as an individual are entirely unique, and your body is living its own life outside of MyFitnessPal. So there could be stresses in your life, background things. You might be taking some sort of birth control. There's a lot of background things that might be unique to you. That means that little quick maths that MyFitnessPal does for you isn't necessarily applicable to you as an individual. So record everything that you eat for a week. MyFitnessPal is your friend. It literally is your fitness pal. Record everything that you eat for a week and it'll tell you. I could guess. I'm usually fairly accurate when I guess, but guessing is not going to do you justice. In order to lose weight, you take that number. So you've worked out what your average is per day. You take that number and you reduce it by about 300 calories a day for losing weight. You may not have to do that though. If you eat 800 grams of fruit and veg in a day and enough protein, you might never have to weigh and measure it with that level of accuracy again, except for that 1 week to work out your calories. You might not even need to work out your calories actually. Just eat your 800 grams of fruit and veg in a day, eat your protein, drink your water. You might start to lose weight. Some folk do. Some folk do. Depends how much of that go crazy stuff. Depends how much you go crazy. If you're drinking a bottle of red wine a night, you're probably not gonna hit the mark. So that's the basics, as simply put as I can give it. There's a couple of other things I can definitely talk about, but is there anything that you would like to ask?
I've got a question on
Yes.
it's related to MyFitnessPal actually, which I'm using at the minute, and it takes all of my calories burned from Garmin devices basically. So either my Garmin watch or my Garmin on my bike.
I'm going to ruin your world here.
Do you think it's a bit over generous?
Yes.
I get back from a bike ride, but that definitely wasn't 500 calories Garmin.
Let me unshare the screen now. Let me. Where is it? It's up here. Yeah. Oh God, where is it? No, that's not it. I just stop. Yeah, stop share. There, and we're back. Right. So, yeah. So I am the fitness person, right? I literally own a gym. I train 5 days a week. I have done that for a lot of years, and diet is king. Diet is absolutely king. The chances of you losing weight doing exercise alone is fairly low. It's fairly low because what tends to happen is people exercise and then eat more because they think that the exercise gives them a food allowance. That food allowance is really small. So realistically, if you exercise in a day, you might have earned yourself an extra 100 calories. That's a Kit Kat. So I'm told. People keep talking to me about Kit Kats. So unless you're doing some sort of endurance type stuff where you're out on a bike for 2 hours, then your extra calorie requirements are minimal. So yeah, MyFitnessPal.
I was going to say though, for some of the riding you do, Pops, you need to fuel up before and after.
Definitely. But the thing is, you know what those rides are. Like if it's an hour, then it's not a thing. But if it's 4 hours, then it's something different.
Yeah.
So it's very relative. Usually that extra fuel comes from a little bit of extra carb consumption. Again, though, it depends a little, and it's usually not as much as you think it could be. So
How
people tend to go,
bad are gels?
yeah. So the gels are just carbs, right? I don't know what quantity of carbs is in them. Be like, nah, I don't know. It's years since I've used the gels. I used to be a cyclist before CrossFit, so yeah, I remember. That's something you would have to learn by yourself, for yourself. And the only way you can do that is by weighing and measuring and tracking and looking at the results.
Yeah. I use them very rarely, but
yeah. Like I would say definitely, I've definitely been there. I used to do some of the big endurance rides, and I've definitely been there where I've been 70 miles into a 100-mile bike ride and I've crashed. And like the only thing that has got me to the end was like jelly babies. So
Coke.
so like the athletic requirements are different. It depends a little as well on how often those endurance occasions are happening. There's probably not any major issue if like you're doing like a 4-hour bike ride once every 3 weeks or something and you're conditioned for it. If you were doing that and you were not conditioned for it, that's different again. But if you're conditioned for it and you're doing it sort of then eat a little more on that day and don't worry about it. Eat some cake, drink some whatever you want to drink, and don't worry about it. Like it'll be fine. I think sporting nutrition is actually really, really interesting. Some of the top CrossFit athletes do not eat nearly as much as what people think they do. People think they're consuming 4,000 calories a day. Some of the men will be. Some of the boys will be consuming 4,000 calories a day. I would say probably none of the women are. This is where sometimes information gets a bit confusing as a woman, because you hear nutritional advice that has been studied for men, not for women, and women are not small men. Women are unique and different and special. Anything else? Does that help you with your?
It definitely does, yeah. Because this is something that I basically don't focus on, with the exception of MyFitnessPal just for calories. But I never think about the proportions of what I'm eating, and I never think about maybe not doing a massive ride and then like letting myself off for a week because of it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, because I think we've all done it. If we've ever been involved in any event that was a little bit more like substantial than what you're used to. I mean, really, like, so say you didn't, like, so say you did a 4-hour bike ride, right? And you ate the same amount of calories as you normally do. What's going to happen? Well, one, you're probably just going to feel a bit tired. Will you lose weight? Maybe. You might. You certainly lose weight through dehydration if you're not drinking enough water. Do you have to eat more that day? Maybe for recovery? Yeah, it depends what else you're planning to do after that. If you're wanting to then do like CrossFit the next day, then yeah, you're probably going to have to eat a little bit more in order for the recovery to be there. So that's something just to pay attention to. That's being mindful of any activity and paying attention to how you feel and how you recover from it, and recording what you ate. If you do a 4-hour bike ride and you only ate 2,000 calories in that day, then maybe that's not enough. Maybe you do need a little bit more.
Thank you.
Now I'm getting old, I've taken to eating medicinal sardines and mackerel out the tin, and I don't enjoy it, but I look at it as a sort of daily, less offensive medicine than eating cod liver oil. So I've been quite enjoying that, once I stop looking on it as, I should eat oily fish, but I don't really like it. Once I swap that mindset for, I'm just going to eat it like a medicine.
Yeah.
Then you get it down you, and it is growing on me now. So
yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I pretty much did the same thing actually a few years back, and I was like, oh, sardines, I don't know, like, and opened the wee tin, and they only were, they were little fish in the tin, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And I was
Disconcerting.
like, and I was, okay, I'm like, eating my wee fish like a bear. And it turns out they were actually, I've been eating mackerel for years,
Yeah.
and not loving it, but eating it. And it turned out sardine was so much nicer.
Yeah.
And I was like, who knew? I've actually kind of got out of the habit of eating sardine, funnily enough, since you mentioned
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
they were rationed.
I must bring that back. And they're so cheap. It's really cheap.
So you just eat them straight out the tin?
Oh, you don't have to.
Or I put them on a bit of, on a slice of toast or something like that. It depends if how medicinal I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I take it they're cooked, or
Yeah.
Yeah, you can eat them straight out of the tin. Yeah.
You can get nice ones in like a tomato sauce, and the
Yeah.
tin's
Yeah.
like that big.
I'll admit I've only ever given that to my cat. I've often told my gave the present to the cats, but no, actually me.
That's going to be a psychological barrier to get over.
Play around with the ones that you get. I actually prefer them just in spring water, like just without any flavourings with them. I didn't really like this. Funny, because I quite like the mackerel with the flavourings, but I didn't really like the sardines with the flavourings. So that'll be an individual thing. Have them on some oat cakes or something, like you know, or like a bit of toast. I think it's a traditional sardine consumption, isn't it? I mean, there's a ton of other things I could talk about. I just don't want to get too down the rabbit hole here with you, and just trying to stick to answering questions that are relevant to you guys.
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking that if the amount of protein is equivalent to 5 chicken breasts, that could very easily become really expensive. I mean, I'm not proposing to eat 5 chicken breasts.
So bear in mind,
I'm going to have to go away and look at cheap protein, and then a variety of cheap protein sources.
Bear in mind that you are getting proteins from the fruit and veg that you're eating, and so if you're adding in things like lentils or beans or chickpeas into your food, then like those are your cheap sources. And so you are getting, oh man, I forget what the quantities are. Like say you're getting 25 grams of protein from, you know, the lentils that you're eating in a day. You know, that's one of your chicken breasts. So no, I mean, I eat probably, I usually do have a protein shake in a day. I have that round about my training. So I train first thing in the morning, as you probably know. I usually have a protein shake round about then, and then I'll have probably, not always some eggs, but then I'll have some eggs sometime mid-morning, and then I'll probably have some sort of protein with lunch and dinner, and that pretty much covers it. I don't weigh and measure all my stuff just now because I've done it. I might go back to weighing and measuring it again though, just because I do every so often, just to keep track and make sure I'm not kidding myself on, because I think we all can kid ourselves on. But I know I have an avocado pretty much every day. I know that I eat a massive amount of fruit and veg every day. I know that I eat like meat with nearly every meal, and that I have that protein round about my training. So I've got I'm fairly confident in my micronutrients quantity. The other stuff just comes down to, do you want to lose weight? After that, it's like, if you want to change your body composition, then you almost have to weigh and measure. But you might get away with not weighing and measuring. You might. I'd say weigh your protein though. Like figure out how much protein. So if you want to know, for example, how much protein you're getting from your fruits and your veg, and therefore then how much protein you need to eat from source, you have to weigh and measure for a few days. Now, if you're going to do that for a week anyway to figure out how many calories that you're consuming, then you'll get that. You'll get that. Have a look at my MyFitnessPal and see how much protein are you getting from your fruits and your veggies. You know, more than probably what you think.
You mentioned seeds, and it doesn't matter what type of seeds, just eat seeds if you want.
Yeah, just don't eat too many of them.
Okay.
Like they can be very dense in calories. Although to be honest, with seeds, you're probably not going to eat too many of them. No, probably not, because they're fiddly. I scatter them on a salad, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I sometimes put them in my porridge.
Yeah, that's nice. Now is the time to get any questions answered, and I feel like there's always questions that people aren't asking.
30 different fruit and veg is ambitious. I've just totted up, and I cook from scratch every day. And we have a very varied, I would have said we have a very varied diet. You know, we're always on about, and I reckon, don't know, there might be stuff I'm missing, but I reckon we're on 20. And I would say in terms of variety, I've got in the kitchen today. So yeah, so 30 does seem quite ambitious, but I guess you could.
I mean, these are optimal. Remember, I'm talking about in terms of optimal, and optimal really does mean what it means. Like, so you can be super, and trust me, Lorna will agree. I have been there, and I have done the super pernickety stuff. And yes, you feel freaking amazing. Like, you feel incredible, in a way that I find hard to translate to people. But you'll be pretty damn good, like, and resilient, like, at a high percentage of that, rather than at the top. It depends how geeky you are. I mean, I'm getting the feeling you guys are probably fairly geeky, so so it does depend how geeky you want to be about it. Remember, like, your fruits and veg, berries are great because you can have small quantities but a lot of different types. And they're also pretty low in calories for extra food consumption. So strawberries, for example, are like almost negligent in calories. Like, you can have a lot of strawberries and it not count for an awful lot of your daily intake. That goes for nearly all berries. There's some berries, some fruits have just got really nice things. Like cherries are really good for helping you sleep, for example. There's nice vitamins and minerals in different types, which you won't get if you aren't getting that variety. So don't get bogged down in the variety, but just sort of aim for it. Try not to just routinely buy all the same stuff.
Yeah.
You know, which I think we can all be guilty of. You know, so I go, some sweet potatoes. Yeah. Actually, I'm actually not too bad for variety just now. I do fairly okay.
Obviously, we live in the UK, and like, I try and make sure the environmental impact of my diet is as good as it can be. So is your kind of frozen fruit
It's fine.
okay?
Yeah. I eat a lot, especially in the smoothies. So I don't know if you've seen any of my posts or videos before about smoothies. So normally speaking, when I can just get my hands on lots of frozen fruit and veg. At the moment, I'm doing my shopping in the Co-op, and they have practically no frozen fruit and veg. When I was going to Tesco's, you could get a big variety. And I was buying frozen broccoli, frozen spinach. This is for my smoothie. Broccoli, spinach, and then a bunch of different berries, like so mixed berries or strawberries, cherries. And I was just bunning them all into a smoothie with a protein powder. Oh, that was awesome. Might have to venture. Mum says Tesco's is quiet now, so I might venture back there. I got so put off by seeing all the big queues outside. I was like,
Queues have driven me to the Marks and Spencer's food hall.
Nice problem.
No queue there.
Nice problem to have.
So yeah, frozen's great. Actually, frozen's technically speaking, frozen could be fresher because it's usually frozen at soaked. So frozen avocado's handy because it doesn't go off. Yeah, it's really, like, I played around with it a wee bit. Best maybe made into guacamole.
I don't think I shop anywhere good enough that obviously it's frozen avocado. I'm just thinking, I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere.
I just got in Tesco.
But that sounds actually like such a handy thing. Like, for me, like, sometimes, like, I will have to remember eat the avocados once I've got them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
me too. I've thrown away a lot of avocados. It's a sad,
and they're raw, hard as a bullet, and then suddenly they've gone.
It's like, I'm raw. You missed your chance. So some of the other things that come up are things like timing. None of you have asked it, but I don't know if that's something that you've ever wondered about. People ask me about, like, should they have breakfast, that sort of thing. Should they eat before and after training? Should they intermittent fast? Like, should they eat nothing for most of the day and only eat in a 4-hour window? The answer is your body doesn't care.
Right. So all of this. So on see when you get your kind of targeted ads, like intermittent fasting comes up.
It does
on mine a lot. Is that just nonsense?
So the vast majority of research on intermittent fasting has been done on men. Men's bodies do seem to like it a little bit more than women's, but really, in real terms, your body does not give a toss.
Essentially, your body's a bank. Take it
Yeah,
out, you put in.
What normally happens with intermittent fasting is people just eat less because they've given themselves a smaller window of opportunity in which to eat.
Right.
There are some interesting things with fasting that maybe would be worth experimenting with at some time, but that would be actual fasting. That would be fasting for days, not for like 16 hours. Yeah, largely speaking, like, so I would always say to these people, and I have done, like when they're saying like, "Oh, I've had great results of intermittent fasting," and I usually ask them like, "Have you ever tried eating just more fruit and veg?" Like, because there may be intermittent fasting, but having a pizza. So all they're doing is reducing their calorie intake in the day. That's it, or they're reducing their opportunity to eat a lot of crap. You know. So does it have wisdom? Maybe a bit. Like if somebody is not inclined to feed their body with good quality like micronutrients, but they want to lose weight, then maybe limiting the amount of food that they can eat in the day by time has a relevance. But I would say that they're probably barking up the wrong tree. Oh, coffee, that was one. I knew there was something else I was going to talk about. I meant to actually make a slide for coffee. Drink less coffee. There you go.
Where are you on tea?
Same. It depends how strong you make it. Like
really
Earl Grey has quite
like
a high.
2 bags.
Oh, wow! You need to wean yourself back.
Actually, does it all wrong.
Yeah, don't. In fact, I wish I hadn't asked this question.
So, if you drink caffeine after lunchtime, it will affect your sleep. Full stop. Non-negotiable fact. It will affect your sleep. It doesn't matter if you're like, doesn't affect my sleep. It does. It does. I promise you. It may be that your body has learned to cope to a degree, but it affects your sleep. Caffeine can be consumed. Caffeine's very useful as a pre-workout, for example, but I still wouldn't be using it if I was training later in the day. Like, say for you guys doing the 6 o'clock fast, I wouldn't be drinking a coffee before that, unless you normally don't go to your bed till 5 o'clock in the morning. Caffeine affects your nervous system, which in turn will affect your ability to switch off. I mean, think about what it feels like. People drink coffee. Like somebody said to me, surely, I think it was actually maybe little Jess, I think she maybe said, but surely coffee makes you feel better, not worse. And I'm like, yeah, you need to back off your coffee, love. Because if you've got to the stage where that's how it feels, then yeah, you're consuming way too much. Like I said, I've said this a ton of times, I drink less coffee because I'm a nicer person when I drink less coffee. That's my number one reason for only having 2 coffees in a day. And I have them both when I get up. So I have them at like 6:30 in the morning. 2 Nespresso capsules go into a mug. After that, everything's decaf. So decaf teas really, it came on leaps and bounds. I bought decaf tea for the first time just a couple of months back. Just tastes like tea.
I've got that in for my
The
gran.
Poppy's face. She's like, no. Don't believe you. The face of an addict.
I can stop anytime I want to.
Just don't want to.
Yeah, tea at the strength you're drinking it, I'm afraid just falls into the same category.
Okay.
There's always something that you're going to hear that you're not going to like.
Yeah.
Yeah. The caffeine one always ruffles a few feathers. It's right up there with alcohol. You know, I mean, I very rarely talk about alcohol because seriously, if I'm telling anybody something that they don't already know about alcohol, I mean, people are like, can I lose weight on alcohol? Yeah, of course you can, but are you eating?
Yeah.
At all? You know, so I don't feel like I really need to talk about alcohol. People know. Don't drink anyway. So Anything else? It's like my favourite stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Certainly, definitely food
That's
support,
good.
because
Yeah.
you know, we eat well and everything from scratch and high quality ingredients, but there's always more you can do.
Yeah. Some of the things that people like, so taking what you're saying as a test subject sort of thing, like you obviously are pretty high up, close to like what I'm talking about doing. Like you're probably already fairly optimal, which puts you in the vast minority, by the way, Helen. Like most people are nowhere close to that. That's unusual. Probably the things that like become so that they matter. I think you actually went out of the room for a second when we were talking about this earlier on. Is things like the use of extra virgin olive oil as opposed to any other type of oil. So do not, so what I didn't say, because I try not to tell people the things that they can't have, I try and just talk about the things that they can have. But honestly, if you were to push me on it, which you're not, I'm going to say anyway, if you were to push me on it, I would say do not ever use any processed oil like rapeseed oil, canola oil, and you can say it, you know what I'm trying to say. Vegetable oils, don't use them. The degree to which they're processed just makes them terrible for you. If you're going to use any oil, use extra virgin olive oil. After that, avocado oil is pretty good as well. Also, you can get it in TK Maxx occasionally, unless I've been in and cleared the shelf. Yeah, no, it's weird.
I've never cooked with extra virgin olive oil, so you said that it just has a high burn rate, so it needs to be like a low heat.
No, that's not what did I say? That's not what I said. That is not what I said.
Okay.
What I said is it's got a high smoke point, a high burn point, which means just don't push the boundaries of that. So don't like crank it right up. To be honest, even if you do, you're probably going to be okay. It depends what you're cooking on and like what heat your cooker personally churns out.
Yeah.
It's one of the oils with the highest burn point. So it's better used in its raw state, but it's fine to cook with.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does. I'm going to have to go buy some now. Although I do believe I have you're going to hate this, extra virgin olive oil / coconut combined in the cupboard.
Yeah. No, it's whatever. What was I going to say there? Quantities of oil. Like, so even though I'm telling you to eat fat, bear in mind there's 9 calories per 1 gram of fat. 9 calories per 1 gram. So there's 4 calories per 1 gram of protein or carbs, but there's 9 calories per 1 gram of fat. So if you measure out like, 9 grams of fat, that's 81 calories.
Wow.
Yeah. And 9 grams, I'm hoping you know, is about the size of my thumbnail. Right? It's not very much.
No.
Maybe the size of my thumb in terms of fat. It's not very much. So be careful just for the calorie consumption, because although I've not talked much about calories, they are still the thing that govern whether or not you gain or lose weight. This is why intermittent fasting works. This is why if it fits your macros works. This is why Scottish Slimmers can work. It's because they reduce your calories. No other reason. That's why the keto diet works. All these things work because they reduce your calories. Don't lose sight of that. That is literally the amount of calories that you consume is what is going to control your body weight. Optimal health comes from the things you consume. So it's really important. Sometimes I can actually be really guilty for skirting over the calorie thing because I want people to concentrate on quality, the quality of the foods. I want them to concentrate on their health and get away from this idea of like body composition, because people are like so obsessed by it to the degree that they're not even interested in their health and that they actually don't know. I think you guys do, but like the vast majority of people don't actually know that what they eat affects their health. Yeah, it's mind-blowing, but it's just look at your friends and you know.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation. Like,
We had a. I think actually, to be fair to me, it was herring and oatcake lunch the other day, and Noah, who's 10, went very beige. Stop listening to me when I tell you stuff, and then putting it back on me. You need a bit more colour on this plate, don't we, Mum?
I've often had very orange meals, so like sweet potato and salmon and like, you know, carrot or whatever. I'm like, wow, that's so much orange.
Really pleasing. I do, especially with the kids. I find it's really simple, but really like 90% of the way there to just say, have you got enough colours on your plate?
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, for most adults,
Yeah.
most adults need to approach their nutrition a bit like a child. You know, a little bit like a parent is standing there telling them to like eat all their vegetables, you know, or they can't have any pudding. Like, you know, like, I mean, people didn't necessarily know why they were telling you that like 30 years ago, but it's true. It's like, if you do eat all your vegetables, then this takes me back to that like go crazy bit, then arguably you could have pudding. Maybe, if you've got any calories left.
Which you probably don't have by that point.
Right, I think I'm going to go away and scare myself by working out
what
what
that's just
a balanced day would look like.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to do some more of these. If you've got any thoughts on like anything else that you would like me to talk about, then I'd be happy to do that. Or if you even wanted me to go over something like this again, I'm hoping I've recorded it. I may or may not have. If I have, then I'll email you a copy of it out, so that you can backtrack through it or just look at the slides again or whatever.
I've got a little sign in the corner that says it is recording.
Oh yeah, it still says it's recording up here, actually, yeah.
And just a note but I think this is probably just the food hygienist in me. The pictures that you have to illustrate it have raw chicken nestling up against cheese and salad and stuff like that. And I know it's not a meal. I know it's just illustrative, but they give me the shivers.
Yeah, don't eat the chicken raw and don't rub it on your cheese.
That chicken touching that cheese. Oh. Anyway, no, really good, really interesting.
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much.
Do some research.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I might go for a bike ride. Actually, is what I'm actually going to do. But later on,
and then don't stuff your face. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you for my.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Take care.
See you later.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.